Gang, we are winning and woke corporations are retreating. We're going to look at the strange silence among woke corporations in the aftermath of the Supreme Court's leaked Roe v. Wade reversal. We're going to see how the lamestream media is absolutely panicking over that silence. And stick with the very end of this video when I'll reveal how this silence indicates nothing less than the very definite demise of cultural Marxism itself. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote. So come on into your Patriot Professor's Den. We're helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent and increasingly anti-woke times. So if you've already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, many of you have noticed that we have been successfully remonetized here on YouTube. We've been fighting cancel culture over the last month, and we have a lot of firsthand experience with how big tech is trying to get rid of free speech. These are important times to understand how to stand up against cancel culture. Just look at what Elon Musk and Trump are doing. So as a big thank you to all of you for your support over this last month, I'm going to be hosting an absolutely free training webinar on canceling cancel culture next Friday, May 13th, 2 p.m. Eastern. This is my gift to you. There's absolutely no fee, no charge. We're going to take a deep dive together next Friday, the 13th, and learn all about canceling cancel culture. But here's the kicker, gang. There are only 3,000 spots available with our Zoom software, and we completely sold out the last time I did a webinar like this in a matter of 2 days, okay? So don't wait. Again, it's absolutely free. Stop what you're doing. Click on the link below right now to sign up, or you can go to update.turleytalks.com to sign up for the event. The topic is more important now than ever, and I cannot wait to see you next Friday. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. So we have a major victory going on right now as we speak in the culture wars, and we might call this victory a success of silence. Patriots have achieved something that would have been unthinkable literally just a month ago. The most loud, odious, obnoxious, abhorrent voices in America today have been effectively silenced. And I'm talking about the very noticeable silence, the very, shall we say, loud silence of corporate America. Now, if you weren't aware, precisely because they are literally that silent, but if you weren't aware of that silence, the left-wing activists disguised as journalists in the legacy media certainly are, and they are beginning to panic. Now, take a look at this headline from CNBC. Major companies, including Disney and Walmart, keep largely silent as leaked Supreme Court abortion draft sparks outrage. Really? Outrage? Were you outraged when you heard that the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade? Or were you ecstatic? Remember, even pro-choicers don't necessarily like Roe v. Wade because it circumvented the democratic process. It took the abortion issue out of the hands of voters and enshrined it in some kind of constitutional right. All at the same time, its supporters have been trying to tell you that the Constitution does not give you the right to bear arms or the freedom of speech. And that's because, according to woke leftists, what's explicitly in the Constitution actually isn't there, and what isn't explicitly there actually is there. That's the crazed worldview of the woke leftists. So even moderate pro-choicers are perfectly fine with this because they believe in the Constitution. So the outrage is clearly coming from the woke far left, which the CNBC piece seems to think aligns with, or is supposed to align with, the sentiments of corporate boardrooms. And yet, corporations have been largely silent on the issue. Here's how this CNBC piece begins. Quote, as protesters gathered and politicians scrambled to speak out. Sorry, let's rewrite that the way it should have been written in the first place. As far left protesters gathered and woke wacko politicians scrambled to speak out through their frothing mouths. There, that's better. The country's largest corporations remained largely silent after a leaked draft of a Supreme Court decision indicated that conservative justices are poised to overturn a landmark ruling that guarantees access to legal abortions. Dozens of companies, including Walmart, American Airlines, and Disney, have yet to issue statements or even respond to CNBC requests for comment. The Business Roundtable, a trade group that's made up of top CEOs, said in a statement that it, quote, does not have a position on this issue. Microsoft, JP Morgan, and U.S. Chamber of Commerce all declined to comment. What the hell is going on here? Come on, guys. You don't have a position on this issue? Elizabeth Warren just got done telling us this is the single most decisive moment in the history of humanity.
Angling for decades now, and we are going to fight back.
Yeah, that. You see what I mean about the frothing mouths. You don't have a position on this issue. To make matters even worse, you won't even return our calls. You won't even give us a comment. Yes, the legacy media is absolutely panicking here, and we know why. The late, great Rush Limbaugh used to say, whatever the left could not pass legislatively, they always relied on the courts to enforce by fiat. You see, Rush recognized the major problem for the left, and that is that leftism is very, very unpopular among the electorate. It can't do much through legislation because nobody will vote for it. So for decades, leftists relied on the radical left that infiltrated the court system to impose on the nation leftist policies that they couldn't pass democratically. Well, as we can now see, the left has lost the courts. Now, keep in mind, we've been talking about this for years now. One of Trump's most astonishing accomplishments was the transformation of the courts. In his single term, he appointed more judges to the federal court system than his last few predecessors combined. And of course, that included 3 Supreme Court justices, all of whom are reportedly voting to overturn Roe. So the left has lost the courts. And so, as we've all noticed, what they've had to do is turn to corporate America to inflict on our nation the policies that the courts up until now would have enforced. Biden never had to issue an executive order to mandate the vaccination on the population as a whole because, in effect, corporations were doing that for him. They were functioning as surrogates for the far left. So leftists have gone from relying on the courts to now relying on corporations to enforce their will on the American people. So what's happening here, gang? What's happening with this very noticeable corporate silence regarding the overturning of Roe v. Wade? What's rather obvious, isn't it? Corporate America is scared to death of you. A massive conservative retaliation against them if they came out against the Supreme Court. Now, why would they be so scared of you? Well, again, you know the answer to this, right? Look at this. Disney stock has lost $63 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. They've lost $63 billion in market value just over the last month, ever since they tried to take on Governor Ron DeSantis and the overwhelmingly popular parental rights law that prevents school teachers from discussing LGBT issues with kindergartners. I mean, the fact that we actually had to pass a law on that is testimony to how nuts this culture has become. But Disney executives, lost in the absurdity of their incessant wokeness, they actually came out against that law. And as a result, they are now one of the worst performing stocks on the Dow. So Disney's in full retreat. They're licking their wounds. And we know that precisely because they're so deathly silent when it comes to the Supreme Court reversing Roe. Reversing Roe v. Wade, the sacred cow of the left. And Disney's nowhere to be found. And we can see the far left media sites like CNN are panicking over this. Look at this headline from CNN. Forget Disney in Florida. Companies won't be able to stay silent on abortion. Speak up, people. Speak up. Forget Disney. The rest of you need to come forward and confront this injustice. Well, given what happened of late to CNN Plus, I doubt many corporations are going to be taking any business advice from these clowns anytime soon. The New York Times was a bit more measured in their approach to this. They're highlighting at least one corporation that's willing to say at least something in opposition to the Supreme Court. And that, of course, is Mark Zuckerberg's Meta Corporation. That's right. The COO of Meta has come out and said that this reversal of Roe v. Wade is nothing less than stripping Americans of a, quote, fundamental right. Yes, a right that's so fundamental it had to be given to us by the original Roe v. Wade decision itself. So much for fundamental. I love how the legacy media continues to cover this story from their ridiculously biased assumption that the political left always has the moral high ground here. You ever notice that? This is one of the features of the left-wing bias of the legacy media. The political left never has to defend their radical policies. They're always presented by the media as having a moral high ground against the intolerant, bigoted, racist, all kinds of phobic, scarlet letter right. Right? That's what we were laughing at that yesterday's video with the MSNBC borderline illiterate Mehdi Hasan, who actually claimed, I kid you not, when he was railing on Elon Musk, he actually claimed that there's a fundamental difference between the so-called far left and the far right. I'll link the video down below for you. Hasan actually argued that all the far left wants to do is give you free health care. As if there were such a thing. That's all the far left wants to do. They just want to give you free healthcare. Whereas the far right are a bunch of white supremacist neo-fascists who want to replace our democracy with an ethno-nationalist authoritarian regime. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But Hasan is just saying the quiet part out loud. The legacy media has always thought this. They've always substituted news for narrative. A narrative that always casts the far left as having the moral high ground over those evil white supremacist Republicans. And the reason for that, of course, is because the legacy media is the far left. They are far left-wing activists disguised as journalists. So representing the left as the heroes in every news story is just an extension of their own narcissistic impulses. The news is nothing more than a pathetic aggrandizement of the legacy media itself. And they're losing. And they're seeing it. The corporations were all they had left after the courts. Well, yeah, they still got the colleges, right? Universities continue to function as the sacred temples of the woke left. But even there, college enrollment has been imploding of late. Look, when all is said and done, members of the cultural Marxist left are actually beginning to realize the unthinkable. They're losing the culture. The cultural Marxist left for the last decades have done everything possible that they can do to secure the highest and most powerful positions in every single cultural institution, from our courts to our media, to the arts and entertainment and Hollywood and education, and of course corporate boardrooms, NFL, NBA. And of course they were very successful in all this. The problem is while the left conquered the cultural and institutional levers of power, they never conquered the people. And now the people are rising up. And that's why they hate Trump so much. Trump and the ultra MAGA movement represent the greatest uprising against the cultural Marxist left imaginable. And that uprising is taking back our culture in the name of faith, family, and freedom. And as a result, this goes way beyond the left losing the courts and corporations. This involves the left losing culture as a whole. And if the cultural Marxist left loses culture, then they've lost everything. That's what's at stake here with this massive corporate silence. Corporations are increasingly learning that getting woke means going broke. And as corporations continue to learn that lesson, a massive chunk of culture has just been taken away from cultural Marxists. And as cultural Marxists lose culture, by definition, they lose everything. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on how things develop here, but things seem rather clear. With the rise of the implosion of woke companies like Disney and Netflix and CNN+, corporations are more and more turning their backs on the woke left, which means that the woke left has ultimately only ended up canceling themselves. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded. I mentioned it earlier. Elon Musk absolutely mocking and humiliating woke MSNBC. Oh, you're going to love it. Make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.